Okay, so are you guys ready to get into the stress side? This is what happens when your body and your brain have stress. Activation occurs. When I say activation, I mean activation of that feeling of stress. Like we all know like what stress feels like in our bodies, right? So when that happens, here's what's happening. We've got physiological, cognitive, and emotional responses that basically work to shift all of the energy from our long-term needs to our immediate needs. And then once the danger is gone, we shift to recovery. That's how stress is supposed to work in our life. We are supposed to perceive the stress, react to the stress, recover from the stress, and move on to the next stressor. Like that's how our body was created. That's how our brain was created. So one of the things that this is like the cool thing to me, the fact that our body is created to do this. Our brain is created to do this. So I took all of the things that I was reading, and most people use the example of the saber-toothed tiger. You know, we were built to fight against the saber-toothed tiger for 10 minutes, and then we were able to like recover from that, and that's how it works. Well, I have turned this into my very own silly little thing called the saber-toothed tiger Yoda rule. And basically it's, you've got 10 minutes to do or do not. But if you do not, you die. Very simple. Now, I have actually had clients being like, you know what, this has helped me do my laundry because I've been like, do or do not or die. I'm like, okay, great. It works for you. It seems a little extreme for laundry, but okay. So when we are in this saber-toothed tiger experience, right? We've got the brain is talking to the endocrine system, very specifically the HPA axis. The brain and the endocrine system are talking to the immune system. And all of that is talking to the autonomic nervous system. All of that is going on in that 10 minutes that we are fighting the saber-toothed tiger. It is all going on in the same 10 minutes that we are reading that really shitty email that our coworker sent us and threw us under the bus to our bosses. That feeling that you get is your body. Your survival brain has sat there and done its wonderful job of neurocepting the threat, and it immediately sends a message to the endocrine system so that it starts releasing adrenaline. The next thing you know, we've got an increased heart rate, we've got increased breathing rate, and we've got glucose coming out everywhere. This is because our brain is like, we got to move fast, we got to take in more oxygen, and we need energy because we got to fight this big bad tiger that's coming at us. But here's what also happens. And people often wonder, why do I feel sick to my stomach? Or why do I get butterflies in my stomach whenever I'm nervous about something? That's because this adrenaline also helps our blood flow shift away from our digestive system, because that's a long-term action. Remember, like we don't really need to digest that last meal if we are the saber-toothed tiger's next meal. You know, we can start to experience this as nausea, butterflies in our stomach, but really what it's doing is it's just shutting down the long-term processes so that all the energy and all the focus can go to right here, right now. And that's what we need. We need all the energy and all the focus right here, right now. So once that happens, our survival brain does another check. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have had moments of like receiving bad news and like I immediately get that feeling in the pit of my stomach. There was no time at all going on. This is an instantaneous boom, you're there. Okay. So boom, you're there. And then all of a sudden survival brain is doing its check again. Now, here's the cool thing. If survival brain determines that we have the resources that we need to take care of this stressor that's put in front of us, then our system will dial back the stress activation levels. And once the stressor has gone away, it activates all the hormones that facilitate the recovery. When the system does this scan again and it determines, ooh, we don't have what we need, or we're really powerless, or we're helpless, or we have zero control in this situation, it actually amplifies the stress reaction. So instead of just being like, hey, here's our line, we're moving up, we're taking our roller coaster up, a little stress roller coaster, getting higher and higher. It's not like that. It's oh, I've scanned. Well, think about it. If you're constantly scanning, then it's constantly telling your brain is constantly telling your system to up it, up it, up it, up it. It feels terrible. The HPA axis, which is that place where the hormones come from, that increases the glucose so that we have more energy. And specifically, it uses cortisol so that we have more fuel for our muscles. And believe it or not, it makes our thinking brain work better. It makes our thinking brain focus more, and we get our short-term memory working so good. Not so much the long-term memory, but the short-term memory. Ooh, and the focus, man, we are in it to win it. What I find really interesting about this is, I don't know how much you guys know, but we have a very, very large epidemic of diabetes going on in our country. And I sit here and I say, well, if we are constantly flooding our systems with cortisol, how are we ever going to overcome diabetes? We need to get back to recovering and regulating ourselves to flush all those hormones out. Our bodies know how to do it. Our brains know how to do it, and we need to help them along. The other thing that happens is that things like our growth hormones, our sex hormones, and of course, like I was mentioning, insulin, which is the hormone that helps us store energy for later use, all of those are considered longer-term tasks for the body. So if we're turning off all the longer-term tasks for the body, we're not growing properly, our sex hormones are not working correctly, which means that we're going to have a whole slew of problems, and our insulin is not working correctly. Again, going back to that diabetes thing. Now, this is all very scary because if we don't turn it back, we can lead to all of these problems. But what happens is that cortisol in the moment actually has some really good pieces going on. Not just, like I said, the fuel for the muscles and getting our thinking brain focused and our short-term memory really going with. It also boosts the energy that we depleted before, and it boosts our immune functioning. This was, like, to me, the craziest thing out of all of it. Like, I was sitting there as over the years, as I've been learning more and more, I'm like, okay, so this stuff is sitting there sending white blood cells to areas like our skin, just to be ready to fight against injury or infection. Like, I always was taught that white blood cells were there to go after the infection, and they're signaled when infection is there and off they go, Well, when we're under stress and cortisol is released, our white blood cells are at the ready. That can't be good for us long-term either if we're not turning that back, right? On top of all of this, the HPA axis is also releasing endorphins that blunt our perception of pain. And it also releases something called vasopressin, which is a hormone that regulates the cardiovascular system and basically makes the autonomic nervous system go from well-being mode into defensive mode.